talk to me.
Yeah. So go to my car, grab my garage door open, so you can get in my house. No, this will be.
Which car is yours?
With mommy.
Cool. What house is yours?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harry. And the drawer.
Hey, is Cooper here today? No. All right, we're gonna jump to Ed.
Put in my car.
Oh boy.
You can skip. Okay, my.
What?
A little bit more room. You can kick my chair out of your way.
So I did the 4-stroke engine. So how does it work? The short version is there's an air. Okay. What? Okay. I think I skipped. All right. So how does it work? The short version is there's an air fuel mixture that gets injected into a cylinder, which is right here. And that air fuel mixture is ignited, and then the power from the ignition moves the piston down, and that's where the power from the engine comes from. And then inertia will bring that piston back up, and it'll keep going through a process. And it's called a 4-stroke engine because there's 4 strokes or phases to it. And those 4 strokes are the intake stroke, the compression, the power or ignition stroke, and then the exhaust stroke. Those will make more sense on the next slide. There we go. So this is an animation showing all 4 phases. So I'll let it go through. This is the intake phase. The mixture comes in, and then it gets compressed and ignited there. I'll show it again. There's it in, it gets compressed, it ignites, pushes the piston down, and then the exhaust phase, it pushes what's left over out of the engine. And it keeps doing that over and over, super, super fast in your car. These are a bunch of examples. You've got 4-stroke engines are really common. They are found in most vehicles today. So most cars will have them. Things like lawnmowers and tractors will use them. Even things like forklifts. And I've got a video showing how fast they move. Yeah, there is. I have to skip through to like. It's of the piston moving back and forth and shows you how fast it goes. Oh, you're kidding. How do I go back? Is it up? Oh, there we go. Okay. Right. There we go. So that's how fast it moves in real time. But then it slows down here. And so there's the ignition. That's what it looks like. It pushes the piston down. And then inertia brings it back up, pushes out the exhaust. Then the intake, the fuel mixture comes in, compresses, and then ignites again. And it goes through that process. And that's called the up and down motion. 1 revolution is called an RPM. And so in your car, when you're running at like 2,000 RPMs, that's that piston moving up and down 2,000 times in a minute. So there's a couple differences and similarities between a 4-stroke and a steam engine. One of the similarities is they both use pressure from a gas to move a piston back and forth. And in a steam engine, the difference is first off, it's an external versus internal combustion engine. So on a steam engine, the combustion is happening outside of the actual engine itself. Whereas in the four-stroke, the combustion happens in the cylinder where the gas is. And then also in a steam engine, every time the piston moves back and forth, it's providing power to the wheel. Whereas in a four-stroke, the only time it gets power is every 4 strokes when the ignition happens. Uses thermodynamics by saying that when gases get hotter, they expand. So when the ignition happens of the gas, it'll expand and push the piston down. And that's what gives you your power. And that's it.
Oh, is that probably who's calling?
Yeah,
maybe?
just let me know.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Okay.
I heard it ringing up there, and I'm like, if they really need me, they'll send somebody if it's important. That makes sense. Thanks for letting me know, Tim. Thank you. That's okay.
All right, so the next one on our list is Jemiah with the rotary engine. So I made it so you can share your screen. So you can just share your screen, show us your animations. And I think if you speak, it will come in booming through our speakers over here. So you're good to, you should be good.
So you can hear me.
Oop, I can't hear you. Hold on a second. Headphones. Okay. Headphones. Here, try talking again, Jemiah, and see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, nothing.
I feel like a messed up voice because I'm
Oh.
sick.
Got something. Oh, maybe it's my, hold on a sec. Try again.
Hello.
Yep, we got you.
All right.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear now. So what we'll do, like if people have questions, I'll just kind of act as the liaison for you to try to address them if what you're saying doesn't make sense to anybody, okay? So
All right.
can you share your screen? Are you able to do that? Do you know how?
I do not.
Okay, so down at the bottom, when you wiggle your mouse around, there's a green box that pops up that says share screen.
I have no idea where that is. Like down the bottom, you say?
Yep.
Share. It's just the green.
Hey, Leah, try sharing your screen once just to make sure that works. Oh, there, I got it. Yeah, you got it. We're seeing what you see. Never mind, Leah.
Okay. All right. So do I just go?
Yep, we're all listening. We're ready.
My presentation was the rotary engine. This is of course by me. The history of it was invented by Felix Wankswell in 1954. It was first used in 1967 when it was featured in the Cosmosport, which is one of the earlier sports cars. How it works, much like the auto engine, but the opposite. The auto engine uses the axle, or like the crankshaft in the middle to turn around the cylinder block, but in the rotary engine, it's a cylinder block that turns around the crankshaft, which moves that. This is one of the examples that were on the given link. This is like the closest thing I could really find to it that's used in modern day, or close to now. It's the, I don't know how to really pronounce it, the Gnome rotary engine. It was used in fighter planes during World War I. Usually utilized air cooling, which is pretty effective. It was great at keeping momentum because like it was a big moving thing that could, I don't know, it was pretty heavy. You don't use it much anymore. It had a gyroscopic effect, and it was well balanced. And how rotary engines relate to thermodynamics. The entire premise of thermodynamics really, I think, is like keeping energy and most of that has to do with heat. So like it's mostly just about being able to effectively move without losing all the heat through like or the momentum through heat, like friction and stuff. And that's about it within the sources.
So a Wankel engine, it looks like this. It's similar to a four-stroke engine, and you saw a four-stroke engine in Evan's picture. I'll just bring up one of those real quick. So here's that four-stroke engine, and here's a Wankel engine. A Wankel engine, rotary engine, it still does the exact same four strokes that a four-stroke engine does. So there's an intake, and the intake is right here on the right-hand side. So as I advance this, what they call a lobe, when you advance this around, it's sucking in air and fuel. So you'll see it suck that in. So there's the intake phase, and then this is gonna close off. And so now you have a volume of air and fuel over here. And now we're going to compress that. So we're going to squeeze that down. So there's the compression phase. You can see this volume getting smaller and smaller, squeezing it down. And then all of a sudden the spark plug comes along and it ignites. So you'll see a spark right here, and that ignites the air fuel mixture. And that expansion drives that rotor around. So then after it's burned, you have the exhaust phase. And so this becomes exhaust, and it gets pushed out the back. So a common, maybe this will help you. It's a mnemonic device for a four-stroke engine. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Sucks in air, squeezes it together, bang, you ignite it, and it blows it out the exhaust. Intake, compression, ignition, and exhaust, and then it repeats itself. So it's this loop that keeps looping, and there is no defined starting point. There's no defined ending point. This is just where you start is where you start. Some of the benefits of this engine is that it doesn't have to turn around. So like this engine, the four-stroke engine, you're constantly having to accelerate and decelerate a piston, and it's inherently not efficient in its very nature. You're always having to stop and start it every single time. But with a rotary engine, this thing turns, there's no inefficiency. Super efficient, super small. You find them in Mazdas. Like if you've ever heard of a Mazda RX-7 or a Mazda RX-8, the R stands for rotary. So these have rotary engines in them. Or if you have a snowmobile, a Rotax, I think it's Polaris that makes that they have rotary engines in them as well. Why don't we have rotary engines everywhere? Because aren't they just so efficient and great and small, and they have way less moving parts and are cheaper to manufacture? All those are true, except since we're always burning right over here, since we're always burning and combusting our fuel on the left-hand side, the left-hand side of the motor gets much hotter than the right-hand side of the motor. So because of thermal expansion and contraction, it's hard to make that seal. So they end up being less efficient. By their nature, they're more efficient, but in practicality, because you're only burning something on the left-hand side, it makes them really inefficient. So that's a rotary Wankel engine. All right, questions? Do we get all of the questions answered off that sheet there? All right, who's our next one? You. Come on up.
I'm doing the two-stroke engine. Can you move the thing over there? Okay, so how they work. So first step is the intake of the gas right there. So when the piston goes far enough up, gas goes into there, into the
Use a
chamber.
marker to draw.
Oh,
You can see
yeah.
it when you point, but people are-
So here's the intake. So when the piston goes up, the fuel goes in, and then when the piston goes back down, the fuel goes through this little passageway here into the combustion chamber, and then the spark plug fires, pushing the piston back down, and then the crankshaft push with inertia pushes the piston back up, and then it just does it over and over again. Where to find them? They're in remote control cars, really small ones, lawn tools like chainsaws, some smaller dirt bikes. They're in boat motors, jet ski motors, and they're even in some of the larger remote control planes. Comparison to a four-stroke engine, the two-stroke has more power for its size. It's a lot simpler when it comes to parts, and it's easier to fix, I guess. They're a lot lighter, but they are less durable. They use more gas, and they're a lot louder. The thermodynamics. The combustion and the expansion of the fuel is pretty much the thermodynamics. It's what pushes the piston. And then the compression of gases when it compresses and then expands. I guess that's all. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So repeat my question inside of it.
Yep.
The first thing you said, you talked about that they have more power, and that's definitely true. Can you, in simple terms, explain why they have more power? So repeat that question so people at home know what I'm asking.
Why do they have more power? To be honest, I'm not exactly sure, but
I got it. That's
yeah.
okay that you don't know. I'll go with it.
So I asked the question, why do they have more power? Why do you see these things in like lawnmowers, but you don't see them in cars? The answer is because this thing fires every single time it's at the top. Every single time the piston gets to the top, you have a power stroke. So it's like this. It's like if you were to have a bicycle and you tie your right hand foot to the pedal, and I told you you could only pedal once every other time around. So you have to push and pedal and then bring your foot all the way around and then bring your foot all the way around again. And then you could push on the third rotation. So if you pushed every other rotation, that's literally what a 4-cycle engine is doing. I'll try to go back to a picture of it. I think my animated engine's up here. So here's a 4-stroke engine, and this thing is pedaling every other time. When the piston gets to the top, you'll notice that it sparks every other time. But when you have a 2-stroke engine, this animation right here, this thing fires every single time. So that foot that's strapped to the pedal, you can pedal every single time. So from a much smaller engine, you can create twice the power. If they were everything else being the same, a 2-stroke engine has twice the power. Why don't we have these things everywhere? Because they're super polluting. If you could pause this motor at the very bottom, there's actually a pathway for the air and oil. There's air and oil down here and your fuel. It goes around that pathway and it's got a clear shot right out the exhaust. So you're actually ejecting gasoline and exhaust at the same time. This is why when you use a chainsaw or a weed whacker or something, you smell like gas, because it's literally spraying gas out the exhaust port. So very powerful, very simple, very cheap to manufacture, but they're super polluting.
more questions, I guess. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So I have diesel engines. Okay. They work by compressing the air through the. Oh, you want me to draw? There's the cylinders, and it compresses the air, and then it goes through here.
Do you have an animation of your engine?
No, I couldn't find one until right now, and then I had no idea how to add it to the thing. I don't, how do I clear it? Okay.
Is that helpful at all? Like, can you explain how it
Yeah.
works with this animation?
So the air comes in, and then it compresses, causing, it ignites. No, spark plug is the gas one. So it compresses to such a high temperature that it causes it to spontaneously combust, which ignites a fire, and it pushes the fuel. The fuel gets pushed into there, and then it ignites, and then it goes through and pushes into the piston, which drives the crankshaft. It's not up there anymore. Which sends power to the wheels, which makes it run, basically. How do I get?
If you want to go back to your thing, it's over here, that tab over here. So if you want to switch back and forth, you can click on that tab way on the right.
Okay. How do I get rid of the stuff that I drew
Eraser,
on there?
the eraser.
Just that? Okay. Cool. Okay. So where are they commonly found? They're mostly found in like big trucks and heavy machinery, construction equipment, and locomotives like trains and things like that. I have to what?
It's up top right, there's something right by your hand.
That?
Yeah.
Okay. So how is it similar to gas engines? It's similar because they both use internal combustion and rapid explosions, but it is different because, oh, can you not see that? Okay, well, gas uses spark plugs and diesel just uses extreme compression and heat. So nothing is actually, like a spark's not actually igniting from something, it's just from the intense compression for diesel, but for gas, it's like an actual spark. Okay, advantages versus disadvantages. The advantages are it takes less maintenance and is more reliable, and it is also becoming more economically friendly as they progress, and they're actually not as loud anymore as they used to be with the new technology, but that is still a disadvantage because they are still louder and they pollute the air more. And the fuel is more expensive. In the long run, they can be cheaper because the fuel lasts longer. But if you're looking at just the price when you're buying fuel, it will say it's more expensive, which for some people, I guess, can be a thing. And it's harder to find sometimes, diesel fuel. Oops. Okay. Why are they so loud? It is because of a mixture of pressure and ignition that makes what they call like a diesel clank. And it's basically just the fuel igniting from the combustion. Okay, how do they use thermodynamics? Diesel engines use the second law of thermodynamics. I did have a picture of how it works for heat engines, but I couldn't get it to connect. So they use a partial transfer of the heat. I spelled it wrong, but they use a partial transfer. So with typical, with the second law of thermodynamics, it's hard to explain without the picture, but they both go down. And then for heat engines, there's like a cylinder, and the cylinder takes a little bit of the heat, but not all of it. Yeah. So, does anyone have questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Stirling engine. Lee, I believe that's you. Is that right?
Yeah, did you want me to go this hour then?
Yeah, is that okay? I've got Chase here too. Chase also has it. So if you go through it and you ask a question that you're stumped, we can punt to Chase and go from there.
Okay.
So you can, well, because Lee's in first hour. I just had her come to this hour because I take all my virtual students this hour. Go for it. So do you want to share your screen and go from there?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I had a Stirling engine. So what is it? It's basically a heating engine, and it works off of the temperature difference between the two sections. Benefits is that it can use any heat source, so it can use gas, coal, anything like that, which is different from the other engines that we've been learning about. It also uses a piston system, just like the other engines, like the diesel and the stroke engines, and has a closed regenerator to regenerate the heat throughout the system. Oh, yeah. Okay, so then this is the animation, if it works. Okay, so I can't draw, so can you see where my mouse is?
Yeah, we can. And I can draw up here too if people are having a hard time here seeing it.
Okay, but you guys can hear me fine, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so so it starts over here in this heating section, and it gets compressed like right here, and then it travels up this it's like a passage, I guess I would call it. And so this is the heating cylinder. So it starts here and it moves its way through the chamber down to the cooling chamber, I guess. And then when these turn, they open the pistons, which are these blue boxes. And then when it cools down, it goes back to the heating chamber, and if it gets too hot, it comes back to the cooling chamber. It's just basically like a circle, except it just gets pushed back and forth.
Yeah, it's interesting because the fluid inside of those pistons stays there. Like that's a huge difference between this engine and all the other ones, is that stuff inside stays inside. Like with our diesel, two-stroke, Wankel, steam engine, you're always inputting different stuff to let the gas expand, but here it's like closed. And you can tell that one is the cooling one because those fins at the top, those are where it gets rid of the heat. Yep, exactly where you're pointing there. Those fins are, you can tell it's the cooling one because of that.
So then I kind of like stepped it out step by step because, yeah.
Yep, no, I get it.
So basically, first the gas is driven into this hot cylinder, this side right here, over here, and it expands. The gas expands and it heats, which drives this piston inward, this piston inward. So this goes down and this one goes back. And then it pumps up. So I guess there's like, I named the steps. So the first step is expansion. So basically the gas is expanding.
Okay.
The second step is transfer. So the crankshaft rotates and the gas gets pushed by the piston up this chamber and into the cool cylinder. Then it contracts. So it basically does the complete opposite. The gas cools down in the chamber and both pistons push it out. So this one pushes out into the chamber and so does this one. And then the transfer is same as the second step, except it's just the opposite. It moves from the cool to the hot cylinder. And it uses gas expansion as its property of thermodynamics. As you can see, the gas expands, the gas cools down. Any questions?
No, that was awesome. That was awesome. Those, what do you call them? Stirling engines are pretty fantastic. I was reading in 2014, so 6 years ago, the Swedish Navy put a Stirling engine in a submarine because they're super quiet. You can run these things on any heat source. And they were playing a war game with the United States military, and they were able to like penetrate a carrier group and sink, like virtually sink a US aircraft carrier. And the US Navy went crazy. Like they rented that submarine from the Swedish Navy for 2 years so they could figure out countermeasures. Like these Stirling engines are really fantastic little things, super efficient. They just run on any heat source. So, I mean, we don't see them a whole lot, but I've seen them act in some pretty incredible ways. Evan's got a question. Evan asks, inside the chamber is a gas. Is that correct?
Yes, inside the chamber is a gas. Inside the pistons, it's not a gas though, it's a liquid.
Evan and Chase are chatting right now. All right. We left off yesterday. We're going to loop back around, and we left off with Abby with water towers, right? Yep. And then we have well water. Who has well water? Yes. Okay. So we're going to loop back and do those two right now. You were, and like, it's funny, like, I can't get through this in 2 minutes. It's like, you almost knocked the whole thing out. It was very impressive. I don't know where you were either, but I'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly. I can tell you where you were. You were on 10, 11. I think you were in the fourth song. So here, I'm going to give this to you. Wherever you think you left off, if you want to review, you want to just touch on it, it's up to you.
All right, did I answer this one?
Yeah, you ended. Yeah.
All right, so then I said like it does work, but only for a little bit. All right, so then this is just like, there's like 5 slides of this. It's just pictures of how it works. So up here, you can see that it's like taller than the building, so everywhere has water. Like as you go along, as the tank gets lower, the less of the building gets the water. So therefore, yeah, so like the tank does have to be taller than everything else around, otherwise they won't get water because gravity is what makes the tower work.
That's 2 pictures I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that's it really, because I did it all yesterday.
That's okay. That's all right.
But any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, do they use water towers in like big cities like Chicago, New York? It's a freaking great question. Do you know the answer to that?
No clue. So he asked if they use it. Chase asked if they use water towers in like bigger cities like Chicago or New York or something.
And you didn't know, right?
I have no clue.
That's okay. I have to ask you bigger. It has to be bigger than the 100 storm. That's right. It has to be bigger. And you bring up a really great.
You get the answer now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is like, what about big cities? Like, how do they get their water? Literally every single big building in New York City, in Chicago, has its own water tower. Like we go over here to just images. There they are. Like, and if you can't see them, like if you go up in the boroughs, like up in New Jersey and New York City, they have water towers up on top. And if you can't see it, it's inside the building. They just facade the building so it looks like windows or it looks like a top floor, but really there's a big, huge cistern or water tower behind it. And it works the exact same way. They got to pump it up. Another great question is, why doesn't it freeze? Like it's freaking negative 10 degrees outside. How does that thing not freeze? Anybody know the answer to that one? Did you come across the cranston?
Constantly, like every day it's getting pumped new water into it, and it goes out every time someone needs water. So
That's exactly right. It's always moving. Like it's always being pulled down because people are using it, or they're always pumping it up because it's a constant motion. Never freezes. No matter how cold it gets.
I thought rivers could freeze.
Rivers can, sure. But like this, they might have like an agitator or something, but it's constantly being, you know, like the water on the top is being pumped in and like it's moving.
So rivers, does that mean that sometimes rivers?
Yeah. I mean, if rivers are really moving, they don't freeze. Can you answer that question?
I did not hear him.
No, I got it. So Lance asked, why don't we just pump the water right into people's houses? And did you know the answer to that one, Abby? Oh, okay.
Because it's much cheaper and more efficient for all the cities to like have their own water tower for them, because otherwise it'd be a lot more energy consuming and just not as great for the environment.
Yeah, you'd have to buy one hell of a pump to pump water to everybody's house all at once. So water towers, you just pump it up to the top and then you just let it sit to when you need it. And I learned just this weekend that municipalities, they design their water systems around Super Bowl Sunday because everybody at halftime goes to the bathroom. So basically every single house in the town will flush at the same time. So your sewer has to be able to handle that day. So I went to Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's a NASCAR race facility down in Charlotte. It's called Lowe's Motor Speedway now, but they have their own water tower and it takes them 2 months to fill it up. So they fill up the water tower outside of the racetrack. And on the day of the race, they empty the entire thing because everybody flushing the toilets. Like it takes so much, you can store it where a pump can't provide that volume at that rate. And a water tower can. It's just a storage for when we need it.
Are there any more questions?
Great questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was good. What's our next one? Well water. Come on up. Here you go, eating that. Go for it.
All right, so I obviously had well water.
You have to speak louder than that.
All right, so how it works. So the well drillers will come to your house. They'll drill down to the aquifer. And then they'll install a pump system that like pressurizes the water and brings it up to your tank and then to your house whenever you need it. And then the main difference from a water tower is there's no chemicals in your well. Like in a water tower, they use like chlorine and fluorine to like clean the water out. And then will it work without power? No, but you can use up the remaining water.
Why doesn't it work without power?
Because it's an electrical pump.
Yeah, so just repeat my question.
Oh,
So people at
Mr.
home
Hare
can
asked
hear me ask
why
it.
it doesn't work without power. And the answer is because it's electrical pump, so it doesn't work without power. And then some advantages and disadvantages is in the long run, it's not as much money as a water tower, using water from that. And then it's better health because there's no chemicals. And then some disadvantages is it doesn't work without electricity. And there's a water shelf where you get the water from. If there's a drought, you won't get as much water. Yeah, and that's it.
You have a well? You have well water, Dalen?
Nope.
You don't have well water.
Anybody have well water out there? Oh yeah. Have you ever had to go out there and hold the flashlight for your mother or father as they try to fix that thing? How much fun is that? It is not fun. I learned lots of really interesting words with my dad while it's pouring rain and lightning because something is wrong with the well. One of the biggest disadvantages of well water. You got to take care of it. If you don't test your water, you have no idea what you're ingesting. If you don't fix it, it's not going to work. People on city water, somebody tests it every day, and if it breaks, they take care of it. Not my problem, but I pay for that. So, it cost saving. It's cheaper. We had a question in the back, Ava. It had what in it? Oh my gosh. Ava shared that they tested their well water and had arsenic in it, so they couldn't drink out of that well for years, right? Yeah. That's a big one, is you got to take care of that stuff. It is definitely cheaper. Like once you have a well, it's like I can turn my water on and let it run all day. People in the city, you pay for that. Like you're going to pay for your water. Now, I don't know if any of you noticed in your house, you have 2 water meters. If you live in the city, like there are 2 dials somewhere in your basement. One of those dials goes for outside water. So the water company is looking to see how much, if you use 20 gallons outside, they're assuming that that's not going down the sewer. So you get paid more for water you use inside the house than outside the house. Because if you use it inside the house, they're assuming it goes down the sewer and you're going to charge you for that because of the wear and tear in the sewer system. So, pro tip, if you're going to fill something up, a lot of something, fill it up on an outside faucet because you're charged less for that than you are on the inside. Or if you're on well water, you don't care because it's all free and you're just using the electricity. All right, people. Have a nice day. Thanks for coming. I think we're through. You're going to want to look up, I think Cooper's the only one that didn't get a chance to go, and he was doing steam engine. I'm going to ask him to put together some sort of presentation virtually to push to you. But if he doesn't, you're going to want to look up how a steam engine works because that stuff is coming on a quiz on Thursday and then a test on Friday. So if Coop comes through for you, good. But if he doesn't, you're going to want to look that up just so you have an idea of how that works on a basic level. Maybe you saw a little bit with the 4-stroke engine with Evan. He had talked about a couple of the differences between a 4-stroke and a steam locomotive, but that is that. Are there any questions with people at home?
No.
Okay. Fantastic. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you later. Mistake. Oh, so I feel bad. I could take it out right now and it would work.